Socialism is when the government does stuff. And it's more socialism the more stuff it does. And if it does a real lot of stuff, it's communism.
Hello everyone. Someone once said that it takes 10 minutes to debunk a 10-second lie. You'll see that in a bit. Blame YouTube's broken system for this, but I'm responding to a PragerU video today. I've never watched a single video of theirs, but somehow my recommendations are filled with them. For the uninitiated, PragerU, or Prager University if you're so inclined, is a conservative propaganda network funded by two billionaires who made their fortunes fracking. Its second major funder is the Lynd and Harry Bradley Foundation, a conservative charitable foundation which has a stated goal of being for limited government. Not when it comes to the military though, tisk tisk. And was found to be one of the biggest funders of climate change denial. They also have the Bradley Prize, a grant to individuals who are quote-unquote innovative thinkers. In 2011, this was given to no one other than Jeb Bush. Yes. All the other funding is from the usual places you'd expect. Donors Trust, a non-profit that was set up to, and I quote, ensure the intent of donors who are dedicated to the ideals of limited government, personal responsibility, and free enterprise. The Surley Freedom Trust, which was set up by Daniel C. Surley in 1988 in order to back his ideas as a free enterprise conservative. I think you get the idea. Not exactly a non-biased source. Then again, objectivity is mostly a meme, but that's a conversation for another time. Each video apparently costs as much as $30,000 to produce, my lord. Considering how much money they spend on this nonsense, their content really is shit. They really aren't getting their money's worth. The video I'm taking a look at this time is Capitalism versus Socialism, with a staggering 10 million views. Somehow, no one else has responded to this yet, so let's just jump right in. The ideology begins already with the description. Decades after capitalism seemed to have triumphed over socialism, politicians are once again arguing about the merits and drawbacks of these opposing economic systems. Why are we still having this debate? The USSR was illegally and undemocratically dissolved, and incorrectly assumed geopolitical enemy of the US disappeared. That doesn't mean that socialism did along with it. Numerous countries around the world profess socialism to this day, no matter how valid you may consider those claims to be. Regardless, if capitalism collapses in the US, like it does every couple of years, that doesn't constitute a defeat of capitalism. Just silly. The debate is happening because capitalism is an inherently unstable and contradictory system, but we'll get to that. Oh, also, check out Andy Puzder's book, The Capitalist Comeback, The Trump Boom and the Left's Plot to Stop It. The, Trump boom? How many COVID deaths are there now exactly? Oh, but the Nasdaq is up, so that must mean everything's alright. Right. Anyways, the video.
Capitalism versus socialism. We can sum up each economic system in one line.
This is Andy Puzder. He made his fortune by being one of the top pro-life lawyers in the US. Through his connections, he became chief executive officer of the parent company of the American fast food chains Hardee's and Carl's Jr. Nominated by Trump to be the Secretary of Labor of the US, he withdrew when he didn't get any votes for the position, and thank God for that. He got Trump's nomination by being a huge donor to his campaign, giving upwards of $300,000. Political favors for money. Don't you just love American democracy? He's widely known for his beautiful nuggets of wisdom, such as this one. I like beautiful women eating burgers in bikinis. I think it's very American. He's also known for far more unsavory things, like, allegedly, abusing his wife, or ex-wife, not paying his workers, and dodging his taxes. Let's see what this upstanding member of society has to say, shall we?
Capitalism is based on human greed. Socialism is based on human need, right? No. Wrong. So wrong. It's exactly backwards. And I'll prove it to you.
I've been a Marxist for a long time, and I've never seen it formulated in such a strange way. I mean, I guess you could say so, but it's also abstracted to the point of being incorrect. This is essentially starting with a strawman position. Let's see if he qualifies what he means.
Been on Amazon lately? Each of the thousands of products Amazon offers represents the work of people who believe they have something you want or need. If they're right, they prosper. If they're wrong, they don't.
Are we really doing the let's explain the painfully obvious here? First of all, a lot of demand is artificially manufactured, and a massive and simple example of which is the American military and its relationship with its contractors. This touches practically every single service and product too. All of this is done through either planned obsolescence, an artificial limitation on a supply of a good, market speculation on goods, and dozens of other mechanisms. Hell, advertisement as a whole exists as a multi-billion-dollar industry with the sole purpose of selling you things you don't need by playing on your insecurities and fears.
That's how the free market works. It encourages people to improve their lives by satisfying the needs of others.
If that truly were the case, then the US would have had a magical free market solution to an issue with back-breaking demand, affordable and widely available healthcare. Surprisingly, or better yet, unsurprisingly, this doesn't exist. Why? Because we don't live in a world where the purpose of the market is to fulfill a need. The primary purpose of capitalism is to turn a profit. That's it. Behind all the nice-sounding phraseology spewed in a bad attempt to justify a fundamentally broken system is only one cardinal truth. Capitalism necessitates profit. What makes profit? Artificial limitations on access to healthcare, massive markups on medicines that cost cents to produce, insurance programs that find every single loophole using legal trickery in order to not pay and deliver the service that people get insurance for in the first place, on and on. He fundamentally understands this. All capitalists have to. All the rest of the talk is just to keep the circus going.
No one starts a business making a thing or providing a service for themselves. They start a business to make things or provide services for others.
Correction, they do so to turn a profit.
I speak from personal experience. When I was the CEO of the company that owns Carl's Jr. and Hardee's restaurant chains, we spent millions of dollars every year trying to determine what customers wanted. If our customers didn't like something, we changed it, and fast. Because if we didn't, our competitors would, pun intended, eat us for lunch.
This isn't something exclusive to capitalism, firstly. Secondly, no mention of monopolies. Yes, at the very basic level, you have to provide something people want, or think they want. There are many exceptions, but with food that can become less relevant. Conveniently, though, what isn't mentioned is the buyouts of smaller businesses and massive mergers that occur every year. Fast food restaurants and massive coffee chains like Starbucks are notorious for this. Comfortable, let's not really compete for market share deals exist too. It isn't so much we're doing so great because we're delivering a great product, and more we're doing so great because, through elbowing out all local small-scale competition, we're the only option you have now, despite our mediocre product. Walk across any mall or center of a medium-sized European city, and you'll see the same exact brands. There's a reason for that.
The consumer, that's you, has the ultimate power. In effect, you vote with every dollar you spend.
Ah, yes, except that doesn't work. Let's ignore the talk of food for a second and talk about capitalism in general. First of all, for all the talk about democracy that we hear on PragerU, this is a notoriously undemocratic thing to promote. At the polls, it's supposedly one person, one vote. With money, though, that flies out the window. That's why political donations and favors to the rich are all we see. It doesn't work because most of the votes, money in this case, belong to an incredibly small percentage of the population. Even if a monolith of the lesser moneyed were to band together to achieve something, it wouldn't take more than a few bribes, or lobbying as it's professionally known, to overturn whatever would benefit the majority of the population. This extends to all branches of business too. Vote with your dollar only to find out that the unethical or undesirable option, as well as the green and supposedly ethical option, are both owned by the same parent company. Cognitive dissonance is the name of the game.
In a socialist economy, the government has the ultimate power.
No, the people do. How do you think socialist governments are formed exactly? Unlike under capitalism, where all power is situated with those that have the most money, under socialism, numerous streams of determining all aspects of life, from a constitution to economic planning to laws, and everything between, are determined by people democratically voting, either directly or through delegates, to councils, congresses, and committees. Historic examples of socialism practice this, with certain limitations of course, and currently existing socialism continues to do so, from Vietnam to Cuba.
It decides what you get from a limited supply it decides should exist.
Repeat this part, but think of capitalism instead. Unsurprisingly, the statement fits capitalism better than it does socialism. Capitalism does indeed limit supply of many things based on profitability, and most of the supposed variety that exists is only, hilariously, artificial. Toothpaste is a perfect example. Go to any grocery store and gaze in awe of the hundreds upon hundreds of boxes. Take a look at any number of them to find out that, magically, they're all made by either Colgate-Palmolive or Procter & Gamble, the makers of Crest. In disbelief, you run to the candy section. You quickly throw bars and bags over your head. When your eyes finally focus, you shudder. Just 3 companies make practically every candy on Earth: Mondelez International, Mars Incorporated, and the Hershey Company. You begin to convulse, eyes darting back and forth as you crawl your way to the medicine aisle, only to find that, over a standard lifetime, you'll only really encounter 2 companies, Pfizer and GSK. As you feel the sweet release of death take you, you awaken, sweating. Well, as much as a spirit can sweat. You find yourself in a Hillenbrand casket, which owns a 50% market share of all caskets made. The other half belongs, unsurprisingly, to only one other company. You scream, but no one hears. Joking aside, the traditional argument for capitalism that it allows for variety really does fall flat. First of all, capitalism tends to monopoly. It's called the centralization of capital, and is not only a natural process of the system, but also absolutely necessary. There's market competition, yes? What happens in a competition? Someone wins. When they win, do they let the loser keep their market share? Of course not. As competition goes on, winners arise and monopolies begin to form. Add on top of this convenient agreements between companies not to bother each other in the competitive sphere once they get large enough, and you get exactly what this dude is complaining of: a limited supply of limited variety as determined by capitalism's core functions.
Instead of millions of people making millions of decisions about what they want, a few people, government elites, decide what people should have and how much they should pay for it.
Nice straw man. As expected from the academically rigorous Prager University. First of all, when was the last time what you wanted as a consumer mattered? Honestly, think about that. Phone contract companies give you what they deem is good enough and then charge you uncomfortable sums for wishing to cancel. Car manufacturers regularly cheat on their emissions data to skirt a real demand by consumers for more efficient and environmentally responsible vehicles. Landlords skimp on safety features in apartments, resulting in catastrophic fires. Capitalism doesn't feel a need, it finds places to extract profit, simple as. If you can get away with cutting corners, perfect. I again bring you back to the medical care argument from before. If things really work the way this guy thinks they do, then you wouldn't have a broken and incredibly expensive to maintain system built upon snatching every last cent from poor, low-income Americans and avoiding all their contractual obligations to them as a result. Why isn't it fixed? Because it's far more profitable to keep things as they are. Also, again, with the silly, evil government deciding things for you. First of all, planned economies with modern computing are stunningly efficient, as Paul Cockshott and many others have noted. Not only this, but they allow for unprecedented levels of economic democracy that has never taken place under capitalism. If you want an interesting historical example, take a look at Project Cybersyn, illegally destroyed by a US-backed fascist coup in Chile. Regardless, economic democracy, that's the point of socialism, to allow for workers to decide, democratically, what to produce, how much, where, what rate, and to which locations, and much, much more. This can be done in both state-owned and cooperative enterprises, and was done historically, as well as to this very day across practically every single socialist nation, both past and present. Finally, the "we decide how much you pay for it," this is not something exclusive to socialism. First of all, artificial pricing based on monopoly prices are far more common in capitalism. In fact, it's a defining feature of capitalism. Secondly, yes, prices can be fixed under socialism, but that usually means they're state-subsidized and very cheap, not the other way around. Medicines, basic staple goods, building equipment and resources, etc., have all historically been incredibly cheap in socialist countries, as well as in most capitalist countries too. For example, many European countries regularly fix the prices of medicines to prevent the horrific price gouging that capitalists always try to do, and manage to successfully do in the US. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Most socialism bad arguments are just capitalist projection. Capitalism is what limits variety and innovation in the long run. Capitalism is the system that trends towards dictatorship and poverty. Capitalism is the system that fixes prices at artificially high levels, even for essential goods, to get as high a profit as possible, on and on.
Not surprisingly, they always get it wrong. Have you ever noticed that late-stage socialist failures always run out of essential items like toilet paper?
I'd play the Curb Your Enthusiasm song, but I'll definitely get copyright claim, so just hum it to yourself as you stare at these lovely photos. It isn't only in pandemics too. Shortages in food banks are horrendously common, and the very need for food banks in the richest country on earth is equally horrendously outraging. Also, the shortages under socialism meme has been, well, just that, a meme. Most shortages claimed are either way overblown, occurred only in periods of extreme unrest like Civil War or World War II, or as a result of a direct result of economic blockade with the primary intent of causing shortages, for example in Cuba. Unsurprisingly, when a country is blockaded from all sides economically, is sanctioned for more than half a century by the largest economic and military power on earth, which threatens any country that dares to trade with said socialist country in question, sometimes shortages will occur. It's like shooting somebody in both legs and then blaming them when they can't walk afterwards. Rationing happens all the time under capitalism, but instead of equitable distribution of those resources, they all go to those with the money to pay for it.
Of course, this isn't a problem for those who have the right connections with the right people. Those chosen few get whatever they want.
Projection again. Under capitalism, the supposedly meritocratic system, those with convenient connections and money get everything, while the rest get nothing. Did people forget about the university admissions scandal that happened a little while ago? This happens across every single field, whether it's employment, education, opportunities, etc. Capitalism makes it so only those wealthy enough have access, while active limitations and regulations of capitalism's inbuilt defects attempt to curb this very natural tendency of capitalism. Socialism managed to do something incredible. It managed to house, feed, and care for its whole population while providing high-quality medical care and high-quality education at all levels from kindergarten all the way to the postdoc level. I've said it before and I'll say it again. At equal levels of economic development, socialism, with all odds against it, has been scientifically found to consistently provide a higher quality of life for its people. This is, for most Americans, the stuff of dreams, and I don't blame them. Living under capitalism, seeing the homeless on every street corner, and seeing the elderly decide between medicine or groceries for the week, suffering under mountains of all sorts of debt, student or otherwise, and fearing for their lives from police brutality, all this can make a person numb. Capitalism's greatest triumph isn't its projection of its ills onto socialism, but how complacent it has made so many populations with the idea that, well, it isn't great, but it's the best we could do.
But everyone else is out of luck. Venezuela.
Oh boy, honestly, Vuvuzela has been a meme for a while now, but let's just clarify something. Let me preempt all his trash arguments because they're the same ones you hear over and over. He mentioned Venezuela because he considers, for his argument, that Venezuela is socialist. Then he'll try to make it so that all issues Venezuela has, as a result of economic warfare from the US and its support for coup attempt after coup attempt, is a result of socialism. The funny thing about words and concepts, though, is that they have definitions. Most of these free market types seem to consider a nationalized industry or two, a decently sized public sector, along with a ruling party that uses the color red, or has socialist in the name, to be socialism. This is just incorrect across the board. Socialism, in the Marxist-Leninist formulation, is a system based on the political conquest of power by the working class through a vanguard party. It requires certain economic elements like the abolishment of private property, the elimination of wage labor, limitations of markets, the institution of an economic plan, suppression of bourgeois power, be it political or social, etc., the collectivization, nationalization, and reorganization of the means of production and agricultural land along cooperative or state-owned methods, with the workers being the primary directors of production, amongst much, much more. Very little of this is present in Venezuela. In Venezuela, 2/3 of the economy is in private hands, half of the healthcare is private, 80% of the workforce is employed in the private sector. This is supposedly socialism. Let's apply these criteria to other countries, shall we? Doing so, why isn't Norway socialist as well? Sweden, France, they are all more socialist by those very same criteria. France, Norway, Sweden, and other European countries have larger public sectors and public programs, sometimes by a much larger margin. Does that make them socialist too? No. In reality, neither those countries nor Venezuela are socialist. This isn't a not true socialism argument. This is a they definitely aren't socialist argument. Cuba, the USSR, the GDR, etc., these countries can legitimately be considered socialist, but not Norway, France, or Venezuela.
Once the richest country in South America is the most recent example of socialism driving a prosperous country into an economic ditch.
Prosperous country. For the rich, maybe. Conveniently, the 45% poverty rate that existed at the time, and the one that Chavez drastically lowered, isn't mentioned.
Now, maybe you think it's an unfair example. I'm not sure why, but okay. We'll ignore the fact that leftist activists celebrated it as a great socialist success right up until it wasn't.
I've been part of the left for a long time, and I remember the same criticisms being made today as they were back then. By Marxists, I mean. I don't care what your Democrat neighbor thought, he isn't a leftist. Also, why don't you ask yourself why Venezuela faced difficulties? Well, I know why, and you do as well. But lying for a paycheck has been your bread and butter since your pro-life lawyering days. Venezuela faced coup after coup attempt, directly supported by the US government, which not only sent tens of millions of dollars to the opposition, but even as recently as May of this year attempted to send in special forces secretly, with the task of arresting or assassinating government officials and community organizers. Hilariously, the plan failed miserably, and embarrassed the US on the international stage even more than it's been doing to itself recently. This is not mentioning the economic warfare and sanctions by the US, as well as indigenous difficulties within Venezuela, for example, receiving an economy built on nothing but oil revenue from those very same neoliberal reforms he hailed a second ago. When oil prices were high, high social spending followed. When oil crashed, so did the spending. It happened during the neoliberal era of Venezuela, as it happened again now. This isn't an issue of socialism. This is an issue of an underdeveloped economy that has been thoroughly imperialized and used to subsidize the growth of the largest economic and military power in history at the expense of the regular Venezuelan people. When those very same Venezuelan people decide to take their destiny into their own hands, the US turns around and sanctions them, coups them, assassinates or attempts to assassinate its leaders, carries out economic warfare, and does whatever is in its power to force its economy to its knees. When that happens, the US turns around and says, look at how horrible their situation is. It's all the fault of the insert progressive force that has actually managed to improve the situation for the poor in that country. Be it Venezuela, Cuba, or the DPRK, the story is always the same.
But what about Western European countries? Don't they have socialist economies? People seem pretty happy there. Why can't we have what they have? Free healthcare, free college, stronger unions. Good question. And the answer may surprise you. There are no socialist countries in Western Europe.
I am genuinely in awe of PragerU getting something right for once. Honestly, this is amazing. Well done. The only guy that deserved to get paid for this whole production is the dude that wrote that line.
Most are just as capitalist as the United States. The only difference, and it's a big one, is that they offer more government benefits than the U.S. does.
That is true. They are capitalist and they do provide more benefits. Where do they get the resources for those benefits, though? That question isn't asked, is it? The short answer is imperialism. If you want a deeper dive into this, I've done a video on this here.
We can argue about the cost of these benefits and the point at which they reduce individual initiative, thus doing more harm than good. Scandinavians have been debating those questions for years. But only a free market capitalist economy can produce the wealth necessary to sustain all of the supposedly free stuff Europeans enjoy.
I know it's a long-standing meme that graphs, citations, and whatnot are trash in PragerU videos, but oh lord, the asterisk is supposed to go after the word, not before it. Regardless, this is just wrong. First of all, free market capitalism is a myth and has been for over a century. Read Ha-Joon Chang's 23 Things They Don't Tell You About Capitalism for the nitty-gritty, but essentially, there is a massive amount of government intervention in markets and in the circulation of capital, mostly tilted towards massive enterprises and those with the most money. Even by the widest definition, you cannot classify Western Europe, or even the US, as a free market. Hell, Somalia has a freer market than the US ever had, but they shy away from African, Asian, and Latin American capitalisms because they know that the system isn't set up for those countries to succeed. Secondly, the USSR, the GDR, Cuba, etc. all managed to do that and more. The USSR became the world's second largest superpower from a position as an underdeveloped agricultural backwater of Europe. If it still existed, it would have surpassed the US as the #1 economic power by 2005. If that isn't creating wealth, I don't know what is. Oh, wait. It's only creating wealth when it serves those that already have all the wealth in the first place.
To get the free stuff, after all, you have to create enough wealth to generate enough tax revenue to pay for everything the government gives away. Without capitalism, you're Venezuela.
Without socialism, you're Sierra Leone, or Peru, or Burma, or Yemen, or Moldova. Naming an imperialized and underdeveloped country in comparison to the US is just dishonest. When you compare overall, you quickly see that, given equal levels of economic development, socialism is an objectively better system. Oh, Jesus, this is so disingenuous. How can someone knowingly lie through their teeth this much? First of all, taxes aren't the only way of generating revenue. When you don't have a capitalist appropriating your surplus value, or the dozens of other ways capitalists steal from their workers, be it unpaid overtime or wage theft, You can commit a percentage of your income to a common fund used for the development of infrastructure, services, care for the old and infirm, etc. Historically, this was considered as work for oneself and work for society, two halves of a circle. Nowadays, Paul Cockshott and others have devised very interesting ways of applying direct democracy to choices of spending. All very exciting stuff.
In a 2015 speech at Harvard, Denmark's Prime Minister took great pains to make this point. I know that some people in the U.S. associate the Nordic model with socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy.
You know having a market doesn't make it a free market economy, right? That was your point before, but the goalposts have moved. Not surprising. Also, you do realize that market socialism exists too, right? It's a position I personally disagree with, preferring planned economies myself, but Vietnam thinks otherwise, and so do several other countries. Nonetheless, Denmark is indeed a capitalist economy, with heavy state intervention, and its position in the world has been attained mostly through imperialist policies, unequal exchange, and its proximity to other imperialist core countries.
So when you point to Denmark as a paragon of socialism, you're really singing the praises of capitalism.
And when you point to Venezuela as a failure of socialism, you're really echoing the usual failures of capitalism in third world countries.
The more capitalism, the less socialism you need.
Oh god, what the fuck is that? Socialism is a concrete thing, not a thermostat. What the fuck are they trying to convey here? The brain rot of conservatives always shows itself with this nonsense. No, socialism isn't when the government does stuff. Please just read a book. By the way, taking into account your warped understanding of, well, everything, if the more capitalism you have, the less socialism you need, were really true, why do capitalists always lobby governments for favors, the maintenance of their monopolies, and for tax cuts?
Look at America since 2017. A policy of lower taxes and less government regulation, that's more capitalism, has led to a robust economic expansion, something thought impossible just a few years earlier.
Where are the axes? Is this supposed to really convey anything? How is this shit taken seriously? Go ask everyday Americans if their lives have improved under Trump. Tax cuts for the wealthiest and a quote-unquote healthy stock market doesn't really translate to everyday people's lives.
Unemployment, notably among minority groups typically most at risk for poverty, is at a generational low. Economic expansion gets people off welfare and into work. That's less socialism.
The reducing trend began under Obama, not Trump, so this being attributed to Trump's recent tax cuts is not accurate in the least. That aside, though, I love the subtle racism of the statement. Just say blacks are living off welfare and don the cloth. Look, more whites are on food stamps than blacks, and generally, depending on the year and the compiled statistics, either black and white welfare recipients are equal, or a majority of welfare recipients are white. Regardless, there isn't anything wrong with welfare. The stupid welfare makes people lazy idea and other mistaken nonsense is just that, nonsense. This has been documented time and time again. Not surprised you deny the science.
None of this requires a degree in economics. Common sense is all you need. That's why it's so frustrating to see young people praising socialism and criticizing capitalism. It's bad enough that they're working against their own interests. Better job prospects, better wages, personal freedom.
Young people are looking around and seeing that all you're saying are lies. Job prospects have never been worse, wages have been stagnant since the 70s, and what personal freedom is there when you have to work 2 jobs just to get food on the table? That's not even mentioning the price hiking on rent, universities, healthcare, on and on. Socialism is for workers' interests. Capitalists want to work you as long as possible, as hard as possible, for as low a wage as possible, so that they can secure the largest amount of profit. What part of that is in our interest?
But they're also working against the interest of the less fortunate. Capitalism leads to economic democracy.
Really? Really? No, seriously. When was the last time your boss asked you how to organize your workplace? Of what to produce, where to produce, how much to produce, and how to run everything in the enterprise? Have you ever had a say, a vote in anything around the office, in your workplace, anything at all? No, of course not. You're told to shut up and work. You do what you're told to, and that's that. The only economic democracy that exists is on the board of directors, where the capitalists, his children, and whoever actually competent person he's hired to run the company sit and make all the decisions. This isn't an economic democracy, it's an economic dictatorship.
Socialism leads to the economic dictatorship of the elite. Always and everywhere.
More of that lovely projection we've seen from before. And that's that. If you check PragerU's website, you can see their sources for this video, which are almost exclusively Milton Friedman videos off of YouTube, of which 6 or so claims go back to a single 2-minute video, National Review articles, a magazine known for being a conservative rag that frequently denies climate change, and claims that just go unsourced. Lovely. Other than that, they offer a nifty little study guide with such nuggets as why low taxes for the rich are actually good arguments, as well as socialism's anti-American. The quiz they provide is more of this trash, asking questions like, in the free market, who has the ultimate power, with the options being, well, take a look for yourself. This video really is long enough, so I'll end it here, but next time maybe we can take a look at the comments, because they're always gold. If you enjoy what I do, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, it really does help. I'd like to thank my patrons, so thank you to Zarp, Thomas, Ben Smith, Nathan Wood, Jonathan Griffin, Norika Carpathian, Comrade Addy, Jack, Jacqueline, Yuvin, Yvonne B., Alex Marion, Romuald Bedouer, Ray, David A., Fontaine, Aaron Noble, Ken S., J. Fraser Cartwright, CCA, Bint El Khandak, Imran Mamouri, Texpex, Anarcho-Stalinist, Dante, Rick Sang, Lars Utneveg, Fletch, The Red Lettuce, Jolie, Comrade Smirnov, Jose, Maud Sogner, Miller Wegling, John Edward Carrion, Clement Face, Patrick, Faisal Hussein, Joseph Nicholson, Morgan Mole, Violet XD, Daniel Hyman, Zero Adams, Andrea CC97, Red Corridor Raya, Rude Penguin, ASDF, FDSA, Ansis 3, Zach, Zachary L. Petrovsky, D. Lop, Vegan Comrade, Romuald Bedouer, Caleb Reeves, Oren Bondi, Ides of Marks, Biblaridian Fan, Abdullah Thulp, Gonzo Lude, Cash Nelson, Preston Mains, Set, Sam Korth, Rima, Big Dummy Jack, Huge Ass, Princess Charlotte, William Hargis, Alex Dexheimer, Comrade Saul, Anarcho-Marxist, Richard Scott Wilton, Lee Gloucester, JCDS 543, Ryan Hodgkinson, Samiriano Sarkar, Annex Magnus, Patrick Mansouri, Felipe Corrales, Jenny Enox, Comrade R, Alexander Shendi, Wild Bill, Brandon Vergara, A. Comrade, at Southern Marxist, Close Sniper, Colin Moran, Because Butts, Alex Bookbinder, Alex Benishek, Comrade Goat, D. Lang, Darius A. Birdhall, John Bernston, John Poland, No L, Nobody, Paul Luders, Pauline McDeasy, Rocco, Rose Hodgkinson, Scott Radburn, Alan Plum, Brandon Persuade, Coach Cinnamon T, Comrade Benito, Comrade Pingu, Darren McFarlane, Allegra Zon, Eugene Simonovsky, Ferriton, Garlic Bread, Grammar Tifa, Granola Joe, Industrial Robot, Wes, Zhongzhou Hu, DV Gold Gamer, Phyllis Stakey's, Job, Spooky Scary Socialist, Jordan Falls, Khan, Kyle Rapp, Liam Sapanen, Libertarian Stalinist, Mass Strike Now, Matt, Michael Reddy Webster, Namratha Prabhu, Natalie Taylor, Amar Abdul-Jabbar, Parker Cushing, Ring, Rudy, Sid Singh, Sasyam, Ted Tennington Tedsville, Toki Mukai, Tristan Druyan, Veraldor, Satarani, and Zaran Arsin. Thanks for watching.